Welcome back to Movie Lover 22. You know, one time I met a guy outside a show and All Time Low was brought up, and he said he hated them because Dear Maria was written about his sister. It's unrelated to today's episode, it's just something I think about sometimes. Dude, so I went to see Alien Romulus on opening night and I had a good ass time. Yeah, I know, this was a Disney joint, but I saw that Fede Álvarez was directing, and I think his take on Evil Dead is a mighty fine piece of work, so I was into it. This movie takes place 20 years after Alien, and it's about some kids who wind up on a ship that found the OG alien floating in space, and it killed everyone, so hey, now there's a group of teenagers about to get wrecked. Romulus is getting a decent amount of press for being a solid return to the Alien universe. Mistakes were made, of course, some of them really fucking stupid, but people are praising the actual qualities of what makes this a good film as opposed to another legacy sequel that came out a few years ago. Romulus doesn't stumble over issues of inclusivity or striking so hard with a message that it rattles in your head, overpowering all in its path. In fact, I wouldn't say Romulus has much of a message, at least a new one, and by George, it doesn't need it. It fits right in with Aliens, in my opinion. Hey, we're moving into a situation and it went south very quickly and we might be fucked. Romulus isn't a movie that had to be carried by a singular great performance to make up for the rest of it. The combined qualities of this film are strong enough to carry it to the finish line, and few apologies have to be made with performances, atmosphere, the story, or the music. Benjamin Wallfisch hands in a solid-ass soundtrack for this film. Combined with the cinematography, it sets a great tone that helps set it in the same universe as the original. There's enough things in here that are over-the-top nods to the movies we love, but the music properly avoids overstaying its welcome, in the same way that the Star Wars music is obviously in the same universe without being overbearing. There were one or two moments where the director chose not to have music play that would have been totally different if he'd chosen to include it, and I love when that level of thought is put into artistic choices in order to make a film better. Benjamin Wallfisch is no stranger to scoring movies, and I'd say he does have a pretty distinct style. I recognized his music as I also enjoy the music he wrote for 2017's It Chapter 1. I'm about to get into the plot, but before we do that, because I want to talk about what I like and what I really fucking hated, and to do that, we need to get into the story, which includes spoilers. But before we do that, let's talk about our sponsor. Do you even know what a VPN is? I'm serious. I'm not entirely sure. This company asked me if I'd talk about their VPN, and I was like, sure, but I've never heard of it, so do you think that'll be a problem? I hope not. Anyway, send me a message and maybe you can help me out before I read this thing. Okay, back to the movie. We opened with seeing the super awesome and not remotely worrisome Weyland-Yutani Corp finding the wreckage of the Nostromo and discovering a large organic capsule containing, the frozen xenomorph. Immediately, I love the tech. Throughout the film, we see actual 1979 Alien-era clunky computers and machine noises and even the pulse rifle sounds, which warmed my little bastard heart. The WI fucks crack open this capsule, cold-ass Xeno wakes up, and then we move on. Then, we're introduced to Rain, played by Kaylee Spanny, an orphaned miner living on Jackson Star, a mining colony by the best company in the universe, Weyland-Yutani. Rain's only like 19 or 20, and she's trying to get the hell off the rock with her android best friend, Andy, who is damaged but still mostly functioning. Jackson Star is permanently in total stormy darkness, and when she fulfills her contract with Weyland, she tries to leave. WI plays the evil capitalist "what are you gonna do about it" card and extends her contract by another 9 years. I'm actually waiting for some annoying YouTube commentator who's gonna use this bit to condemn the whole movie and be like, this movie is socialist or some stupid bullshit. I'm not like that. I'm a different kind of YouTube commentator. I only talk about fun stuff, and I never rant. That's not true. Don't even get me started on the Jurassic Park sequels. Fuck, that makes me angry. Anywho, while she's dealing with the company bullshit, Andy is outside getting beat up by some pricks, and he's glitching and jerking around until Rain resets him with a little key. Rain's been blowing off calls from her ex-boyfriend Tyler, but now she's like, why not? Turns out Tyler's been calling her because he's got a salvage mission that could potentially take them to a planet with plenty of sunshine, and he and his friends, including Tyler's sisters Kay, his cousin Bjorn, and Bjorn's girlfriend Navarro, want Rain to come with them. Except, what they really want from Rain is Andy, because the salvage mission is on a space station drifting 200 miles above the planet, run by an operating system that only Andy can communicate with. Rain isn't super into it, but Andy's prime directive is to do whatever is best for Rain, as instructed by her dad before he died. They reluctantly agree to go and take off in a mining hauler immediately. Need some water. I'm thirsty. A crucial element in this ship is that it's decommissioned by Weyland-Yutani, so while it might not be in full service, certain components should be in good working order, like the cryosleep pods designed for interstellar travel. The planet Rain wants to travel to, Ivaga, for instance, is 9 years away, so cryosleep is of critical importance. They discover that the ship is a research ship divided into two sections, Romulus and Remus. They dock, and Tyler, Bjorn, and Andy step aboard. Kay gets ill and tells Rain she's pregnant, though she ain't showing yet. The ship is constantly fluctuating between gravity and free floating to keep the ship from imploding or something, but once Andy logs into the Linux root kernel computer shit, the gravity is permanently on and they can do their thing. They find the cryopods are in good order, but they need more cold fuel or something to ensure they'd function for the entire trip. They also discover that the ship has 36 hours before it crashes into the rings that go around the planet. Also, the trio discover a damaged lab room beside a cold room. A half-destroyed android lays face down on the floor next to a gaping hole, which is numerous floors deep. Tyler and Bjorn tell Andy that he's a wasted android and this trip won't do any good for him because he's damaged property. Once they get to Ivaga, he'll either be totally decommissioned or repaired and sent back to the mining colony on Jackson 5 to endlessly work for Weyland-Yutani. Andy gets them into the cold room, which has like 1.5 feet of standing water, and they accidentally trigger a lockdown, retrieving canisters of cold fuel, which causes the door to close, and the room starts to heat up, and turns out there's like 15 frozen facehuggers in the back, forever waiting to be dissected. But now they're warming up and ready to move their weird little skittery bodies. Rain and Navarro are monitoring the guys from their ship and hurry on board to try to open their door, as Andy can no longer control the computer. The facehuggers attack the boys in the room, and they do an okay job fending them off, with Bjorn wielding a large stun pole. Rain takes a disc from the half-destroyed android on the ground, and they install it in Andy, who becomes Super Andy. After he has to be reset again. He turns into a stoic badass, opens the door, and they escape, but not before a facehugger slips through the gap in the door and latches itself onto Navarro. So far, most of this is pretty good. The only things I really wasn't super into is I've seen 5+ movies of facehuggers jumping around and attacking. So first off, there's more than 5 facehuggers in the room. 5 facehuggers versus 3 19-year-olds, not a hard challenge for them. I thought that maybe they were a little too easily fended off in a few spots. Maybe, maybe not, but it's something I noticed. Whatever. They can't get the facehugger off, and Andy tells them not to touch it. It's not killing her, it's got a hold on her, but it's also probably helping her breathe. The others start to panic, and they wake up the other android on the floor, and this is easily the worst thing in the movie. Guys, fellas, pals, friends, do you remember 8 years ago, in 2016, when Rogue One came out, and we were up in virtual arms because CGI Peter Cushing looked like shit, and how criminal it was that the CGI Carrie Fisher looked even worse. Though that monster was on screen for less than 5 seconds, it gets worse. This fucking android is CGI Ian Holm, and it could not have looked worse. It was worse than Xbox 360 graphics, and it's not even a cameo. This abomination was critical to the plot of the film. Why does it look so bad, Disney? Why does this movie look worse than Grand Moff Tarkin? And that was 8 years ago. It's an actual atrocity. I didn't want to look at it. It's like a car accident. It held my attention like an ugly baby. I even turned to my friend during the movie and commented on how awful it was. I had to say something. Even worse, it was Ridley Scott's idea to have Ian Holm's likeness. He and Fede He and the director were discussing ideas for the android, and Scott said, "We have to have Ash. He was the best." But this thing is so bad. I wish I had pictures or a video of this thing. The mouth is all it takes to be so bad. I mean, it all looks bad, but the mouth is more terrifying than anything. But this android isn't Ash, of course. Ash got fucked on the Nostromo. So, why did we need Ian Holm? This is a 20-year difference. Pick somebody else. We've had multiple actors play different androids. You're telling me in 20 years you haven't made any new models? Anyway, this dude is named Rook, who's similar enough. Cold, calculating. He's a fucking robot. Anyway, he tells the kiddos that they found a xenomorph floating in space, and guess what? It wasn't dead. So after they brought it on board, it woke up, fucked everyone until it was killed. I don't remember how it was killed, but it was. He also tells them that removing the facehugger is likely impossible, and that it's probably planting a seed inside Navarro. This is creepy as fuck, so the kids don't take it well. Tyler has the cold fuel canisters, and it has a nozzle linked at the end, so he can basically spray freezing fuel, which he then aims at the facehugger's tail. But while it is a direct application, it's an aerosol at this point, so how are you not also concerned about freezing her fucking neck and or face and chest area? He just generally aims it without being super close, so while he does give the facehugger a real bad frostbite, Navarro somehow suffers no damage at all. She wakes up soon after. They begin to make their way out of there. However, Andy, being upgraded with Rook's disc, now has a new prime directive: do all that is for the good of the company. I do like this. I like the idea of giving a wholesome yet damaged android an update from an antagonistic android. It added for some well-placed natural conflict, plus it got to show off Johnson's acting chops, and he fucking delivers in this movie. Bjorn and Navarro book it back to the ship. Andy tries to stop them, but is unsuccessful, and Bjorn even locks the doors behind them, trapping Tyler, Andy, and Rain on the Romulus. A little tired today. Sorry about that. Bjorn and Navarro make it back to their mining ship and start to take off, but Navarro begins having intense pain because guess what? The facehugger for sure left her a prize. We get a kind of cool moment of her using a shortwave X-ray light through her back, lowering her shirt a little, so we actually see the tiny Xeno headbutting her ribs and breaking them on its way out. Looks really cool. Kay comes in, freaks out, and Navarro falls down and kicks one of the flight controls as she's like thrashing about, and causes it to hardcore move left, speeding closer to the Romulus, and the chest burster literally rears its ugly head, killing Navarro. The ship crashes into the hangar of the Romulus, knocking out Bjorn and Kay. Bjorn falls down a ladder or something, so he's out of commission, I think. I can't remember. And Kay wakes up to see Navarro's body and a hole in her chest. Hurt, she goes exploring and discovers a full-grown xenomorph a few levels down, having cocooned itself in the wall. Apparently this is like a quick aging process or something, which is fine. Bjorn finds her. He's definitely worse for wear. He's seen every day before this has been much better. But he takes his cattle prod and shoves it right into the cocoon. And it does some damage, it seems, at first. But then the xenomorph's tail shoots out and just gashes his face. He falls, and the blood from his spicy attack drips onto him. We get some great close-up shots of his fingers disintegrating, and we get a front row seat to Bjorn's death by not moving. He's like just laying on the floor beneath the thing and letting fucking acid rain down on him. I like to think I would have moved out of the way, but maybe he was so injured from everything that had already happened to him that he couldn't move. Not sure. Anyway, he's now dead, and Kay runs away as the xenomorph begins to emerge from its cocoon. The Romulus announces its brand new deadline of less than an hour before it collides into the rings, since the mining ship altered its trajectory. Now we have some more tension than we did before. I'm okay with this. The trio, following Andy's directions, aka following the company's desires, though Rain and Tyler don't know it yet, make their way to the hangar to try to get the hell out. On the way, though, there's a stretch of hallway filled with facehuggers just hanging out, chillaxing, if you will. But this is the only way through. Andy says that the facehuggers are sensitive to temperature and sound, so they crank up the heat to 98.6 and try to go through as silently as possible. But Tyler's headset starts to go off. Kay is still on the mining ship, in distress as she's being pursued by the xenomorph and asking for help. Tyler whispers instructions to her, but the facehuggers are catching wind, so they sprint through the hallway and get through the next door, Andy locking it as Tyler barely gets through. This is a solid moment because Rain looks at Andy like, "You almost closed it on Tyler," and he replies with, "Almost, but I timed it perfectly, so he's fine." A little hint at his new nature. They locate the hangar, and Kay is banging on the door. They're about to open the door, but Andy notices the xenomorph stalking her, and he refuses to let her in. Rain tells Andy that Kay is pregnant, but he still refuses to open the door. The xenomorph attacks Kay and takes her away. They're pissed at Andy for not opening the door, and Rain demands Andy repeat his prime directive, and he officially reveals he is no longer acting in her best interests. He says they have to find the lab, and when they do, Rook is on a screen telling them about a serum derived from the xenomorph black goo shit being created in order to further along humans in their evolution. See, xenomorphs can withstand extreme climates and illnesses that would be fatal to humans, so this serum is supposed to inoculate humans to extreme conditions. They're shown a video of a mouse being, literally flattened and then being baptized with the serum and reforming its fucking body, seemingly fine as new. Rook refers to it as the Prometheus strain, which is a really dumb name. Yeah, it's the black goo from those movies, but who even really knows about the Prometheus? Think about it. Wayland died on that mission, and David and Shaw steal the alien ship. There wouldn't be any record of it other than that the ship was lost, like in most of these movies. The continuation of that thread is in Covenant, where they all also die, and the evil android gets away, and we never got a third movie, so there really is zero connection with the prequel movies. They only know about the alien that the internet has named Big Chap, which is this fucking alien. They don't know about LV-426. They don't know about what the Nostromo saw. It's a name that makes sense to the audience because we saw a movie, but it wouldn't make any sense at all in the world that it takes place in. Anyway, so Rook says that they have to take these samples back to the company, and he takes control of the Romulus system, refusing to release their mining ship unless they agree, and they do. Tyler locates some good old-fashioned pulse rifles, but they're not Marines, so to compensate, they actually have some futuristic, real-life aimbot tech shit. So you can be a ship Marine and have no excuse not to hit something. They leave with the samples and don't see the rest of the video, where the mouse is killed by a mouse-sized chest burster. There's an elevator nearby that will take them right where they want to go, but it's through a dark hallway that they soon realize is a xenomorph hive like we see in Aliens. The trio wisely decide not to go that way, but they hear Kay whimpering down the hall and Tyler runs looking for her. They find her, release her, and she's losing a lot of blood. Andy acknowledges that they might be able to get her help if they move quickly. They consider giving her the Prometheus serum because it would heal her wounds, but they don't know for sure what it will do, so they hold off. They go to the elevator, but whoops, there's some Xenos around. They snatch Tyler and fucking murder his ass, and this bro doesn't even fight back a little. There was a brief shot of Tyler's rifle as he's lifted in the air, and I was like, oh, cool, it'll be like that scene in Aliens where they all just open fire in the hive, or that he'll go out in a fucking awesome blaze and it's the beginning of the end of the movie. Nope, he just gets wrecked, and that's the end of Tyler. Andy gets knocked out and glitches on the ground again, but now there's a lot of Xenos and there's no way Rain can get to him, so she and Kay are in the elevator and they're good. The elevator goes up, and halfway to the top, Rain hits the stop button. She can't stop thinking about leaving Andy behind. She flashes back to the conversation she overheard about Andy abandoning her. Andy, after all this time, is basically her brother, the only one she really has left in her life, and she shows a huge moment of courage by giving Kay the serum, telling her to go up and prepare their mining ship to leave, and then grabs onto a rung on the wall so that the lift can continue without her, allowing her to climb back down and rescue Andy. Kay makes it back to the mining ship, and she decides to go ahead and give herself the Prometheus serum because fuck it. Rain climbs down to the ground floor. We get a shot of Rain looking badass, reminiscent of Ripley deciding to fuck shit up in Aliens. The area seems clear of Xenos, so she resets Andy, including removing Rook's disc. Andy's back to normal, his primary directive now back to Rain's best interests, and they move to leave. But the aliens are back, blocking their way to the elevator. Rain and Andy run back to the door by the lab, but it's locked. Rook is a little shit and says, "You don't need to survive, so I won't make the effort. I'll get the serum back to Wayland myself because I'm an evil little robot boy." Rain calls him an asshole, but they're stuck facing down a bunch of Xenos. So Rain gets an idea and turns off the gravity generator and starts shooting the aliens since their blood won't fall to the floor and eat through the hole and kill everyone. It's going well. Once the aliens are dead, Rain and Andy have to strategically float through the hallway without getting acid on them. Rain almost does, but she shoots a few rounds into the ceiling to propel her body away, and they make it to the lift. The elevator is still at the top, though, so they have to launch themselves upward. For some reason I can't remember, Rain isn't moving as fast as Andy is, and her rifle strap gets caught on the wall or something. And then there's a warning signal, like earlier in the movie, that the gravity is about to kick back in. And when she begins to plummet back down, she's caught mid-air by a Xeno's tail, which does feel like it should do some damage. Like the fucking scene in The Matrix where, like, yeah, Trinity should have fucking died. But anyway, the Xeno pins her up against the wall, and of course, it takes its time before going in for the kill, because the movie needs to pad some time and create some fake tension before Andy comes crashing down, basically heel-kicking the Xenomorph and riding it down to the ground floor before shooting it in its shiny dome. And then he commits the other big sin of this movie and utters the iconic aliens phrase, "Get away from her, you bitch," which doesn't even make any fucking sense. I mean, not in the Alien universe. It's understandable from Andy and Rain's dynamic. I get, like, the intention. But this is clearly a studio-forced fan service from a movie which chronologically hasn't even happened yet. So even though this movie stole it from Aliens, it almost seems as if Aliens stole it from Romulus. It made me eye roll so fucking bad, while everyone else in the theater was cheering at this stupid-ass line. Andy and Rain make it back up the mining ship with Kay just as the Romulus begins to descend on the asteroid belt. Rook appears on the computer and makes one final plea with Andy to deliver the serum to Wayland, but Rain tells him to fuck off as the Romulus is destroyed with him on it. Rain sets course for Ivaga and puts Rain in a cryopod, but Kay is looking 9 months pregnant at this point, and she is not okay. Her pod starts making a fuss, and Rain watches this girl give birth to a fucking egg. Now, y'all, the tone of this movie has largely been relatively light. Some horror elements here and there, but it's more Aliens than Alien if you're picking up what I'm putting down. It's action chaos. High stakes, but nothing bone-chilling until now. This egg begins to open up a little, and you see the pale face of a bald baby, but something about it is super fucking off. Kay is in a vast amount of distress, which as a father was incredibly distressing and sad, and she reaches in her shirt and pulls her hand out. It's slick with dark goo. This poor girl is lactating xenomorph breast milk. Y'all, the unfathomable horror that this is, I cannot even begin to describe what I felt in this moment. Rain grabs the egg, but it falls to the floor and acid spills out. She runs to arm herself with the cryo spray stuff they used earlier. The egg falls through the floor because acid, but when she comes back, this baby is now huge as fuck. Like over 10 feet tall, looking like a skinny engineer, but a little more human-like in the face, and it's feeding off of Kay, killing her. As the fucked up events occurring on screen unfold, and we in the audience realize what's happening, I'm in one of the back rows, wide-eyed, and one gentleman down the front of the auditorium eloquently called out, "What the fuck?" And then the horror ramps up even more when the hybrid turns around And I cannot do justice describing what this fucker looks like. It's insane and horrifying. Tall, lanky, constantly changing in little ways as it matures with each passing moment, and it's smiling. It's clearly not happy, but as it's part xenomorph, it's baring its teeth. This hybrid is more chilling than that shit kicker movie Smile, which, I didn't see, to be fair, but just the image of this is way more terrifying than any image from that. Rain's cryofuel thing shoots cold everywhere, and she runs to put on a spacesuit as the temperature drops super fast. Also, this creature is known as the Offspring, which is also horrifying. The hybrid damages Andy and destabilizes the ship, so it's also beginning to descend towards the asteroid belt. Oh shit is right. Rain figures out she can release the cargo part of the ship with the Offspring in it, so she grabs the hook line to harness herself and she begins to manually pull levers to set the release. But just as she's about to grab the fourth and final one, the Offspring grabs her, and as it's about to kill her, Rain knocks over the egg, which is nearby, and the acid, of course, burns right through the floor, and they are both pulled out into space. The harness cord is wrapped around the last lever, so she yanks real hard, and the cargo hold falls away, taking the Offspring with it, crashing into the asteroids. Andy seems beyond Rain's repair, so she puts him in a cryopod, and she records a final log before hopping into her own pod. Roll credits. Honestly, folks, I was expecting a decent movie, and I got it. I think this is an Alien movie I'll purchase and watch again. I was tempted to see it again in theaters because there were a few things I couldn't quite remember, had to look up online, but also the horror in the final act was enough to keep flashing in my mind. I will say there was one shot of the Offspring's smiling face popping into frame that I had to fight from laughing at because it was goofy as fuck, but largely it held my attention and I legitimately could not believe what I was seeing. Yes, the Alien Resurrection comparisons came about online, but this is not the same thing. The hybrid from Resurrection was born from a Ripley clone that was mixed with alien DNA as she was killed by a chestburster. This thing is engineered xenomorph ancestor goo injected into a pregnant woman. Not the same, and also done way better. The hybrid was mostly like Frank Oz, Muppet, weird-looking shit, but the Offspring is nightmare material. The reviews for this movie were mostly mixed, and I get it. It's the 7th movie in the franchise, and there are high highs and fucking low lows to compare it to. And some people said this was the worst in the series, and I think they're fucking dumb. I mean, think what you want, but your standard for a good movie is not one I want to associate with. Before I even went to the movies, I had seen a review complaining about the inaccurate depiction of a neurodivergent character. I was admittedly intrigued by this, but after seeing the movie, this is an incredibly stupid take. Clearly, they were referring to Andy, who isn't neurodivergent, he's a fucking robot. What an insult to robots and neurodivergent people. That person shouldn't be let anywhere near movies. There was so much care put into this movie. As much as it doesn't matter to me, Fede showed this movie to Ridley Scott, and as far as I can tell, actually got his legitimate approval, and not just for the marketing value. Fede also made efforts to use practical effects, and it really shows. This movie looks and sounds fucking great. Not just for the nostalgia of, hey, it's the same tech from Alien, which was an issue for Prometheus with the tech being way more advanced than the Nostromo had, and you knew immediately that they actually built sets and environments like the remnants of the Nostromo and the Weyland-Yutani ships. The story is pretty simple, but I like that. The most recent Alien movies were deep character dives into one's purpose and being a psychopath. This was a group of people getting themselves into shit because they wanted to raid a ship. That's it. There was enough conflict between certain characters and splintering relationships, and characters very out of their depth. This is an entertaining movie, and a good one. On top of that, the performances are fantastic. Kaylee Spaney turns into a really solid performance. I'd seen her in Civil War and thought she did fine as an immature teenager flailing around in situations she didn't understand, But she definitely has range in this movie, playing a hardened young adult tired of being beaten by the system, having been forced to grow up too fast. As good as she is, David Johnson steals the entire fucking show. He plays this movie so well, he's terrific, and it's so cool when an actor can do so much with just his facial expressions. I can't wait to see more movies from these actors. Apparently, the whole space station was called the Renaissance, and the two halves were Romulus and Remus. So then, I'm not entirely sure why the movie was just called Romulus, and I have no regrets calling it Romulus this entire episode. Shower thought. When the Xenomorph's second mouth opens up, are they using their inside voices? I'll probably be buying this on 4K, and I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Hey, if you had fun listening to this, feel free to leave a review on the show. That would be great. And hey, maybe tell your pals about this show. That would be cool beans as well. You can always reach out to me at movielovershow@gmail.com, and you can follow me on Letterboxd at movielovershow. Bye!